Man, my name is Taylor Barrett. I am from the United States. I grew up in Virginia, outside Washington, D.C. And for a living, I do a few things now. I teach here at the uni. I also am a marketing copywriter, and I also still write music.
Why did you choose to become a musician, and what drew you to being a musician in the first place, do you think?
Yeah, it's funny. I always, like as a little kid, wanted to be a writer, like a novelist. And it wasn't until I really came to understand songwriting that was when it really became really interesting to me, because it was really like it took language, which I loved from being a little kid, and sort of, in my mind at least, sort of elevated it by adding in things like melody and harmony and rhythm and music. And so yeah, I was around, I think, like 11 or 12 when I really it was when I started to write songs.
Your main musical inspirations?
Oh yeah, I mean, big one is Stevie Wonder, Paul Simon. You're kind of a slave to whatever the people around you listen to when you're young, because you're just sort of influenced by whoever. And so Elton John, like Stevie Wonder, Billy Joel, sort of like dad rock. But then I had two older brothers, so then I would get into what they were into. And so I had this like Metallica phase because my older brother was into Metallica. But then I really kind of settled into like, I just, again, kind of what I was saying before, like I just loved songwriting, like the sort of craft of it. And so the people who did that really, really well were the ones that I really latched onto.
I know I'm failing, but I'm trying hard. I swear I'll be there when the tears start, before the sky comes falling and the seas part. I'm gonna learn to love you in my whole heart.
It's easy to start talking about a job like making music and sound like you're talking about like working in a coal mine 16 hours a day. It's really not that hard of a job relative to other things. But what I have found is that it is a lot of travel and work for these sort of short moments of payoff. That is all worth it if when you step on stage, you get this sort of like cocaine-like high of being on stage and performing. And I just never really loved it that much. I think I was just like, I think I looked ahead and I realized there's no sort of, this doesn't end. It kind of just continues to be that. And so that's kind of a very self-flattering way of me saying that it was just hard. It was just too hard. I was looking at what I was doing and realizing that the reward was more of that. And I wasn't really particularly enjoying that. And so, yeah, and it was a really hard thing because my path into it was really fortunate. And so I had this sort of guilt that like I was only 24 or so, and I was already like, this is too hard. I don't want to do this anymore. Because, I knew people that had been doing it for 15 years and hadn't gotten a deal or hadn't had that big break. But it just was, I didn't get enough out of the good parts for it to be worth everything else to me. It was just, you ever feel like you're kind of, you really want to be the kind of person that you're kind of being, but it just never really quite fit. I just honestly, like, the thing I tell people is I just really wasn't cool enough. Like I never felt like I really fit.
The thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, for yonder breaks the new and glorious.
If you could give one piece of advice to an up-and-coming musician, like most of your students, what would it be?
Just remember that you enjoy it. It's really easy to forget that the reason you do it is because it's an inherently pleasurable thing to do. You really quickly start attaching ends to the means, because that's kind of our nature, is as soon as you find this thing that you enjoy doing, you then say, well, I'm doing this to achieve X. And the one piece of advice that I would give kind of along those lines is think about in your head whatever the furthest goal that you've made for yourself is. Whatever that like furthest, like whether it's like win a Grammy or win an ARIA or get a big record deal or play at this one, play at the opera house or whatever your like most crazy goal is. Imagine you've just gotten the call and you've gotten it. And imagine that moment that you're thinking of where you like get in bed that night and you're like, I did it. I made it. And having that moment of peace and like, I made it. And tell yourself, realize that will literally never happen. Not the achievement, but that feeling of like, I did it. I'm done. Because the way we are wired is that we have this like very brief moment of equilibrium. And as soon as we get it, we have a new goalpost. And so what you have to do is find a way to work and care about that stuff and move forward, but enjoy right now, because there will never be there's no making it, really. It's like you'll never reach this point where you're like free from all of that stuff. You have to decide to be free from it, psychologically. And so that's, again, my long-winded advice is just remember that you love it. Remember you enjoy it, independent of whatever the achievement is, even as you work towards those things.